Yen pin, pena maistok na chuyim, yamanim maidagwea makpapaitina. I made up a word for lesson, makpapaiti. Makpapaiti means to teach, but it can also be a noun, lesson. Hesi maikade, pena maistok na chuyi. 24. Hesi maikade, yamanim maidagwea. Mountain Maidu's language. Yinpin makpapaitina. Welcome to lesson 24 of the Mountain Maidu's language. Now, I'm not even sure this is the best way to say it. Maybe one of you will come up with a better way sometime in the future, but that's what I came up with. Yunpin, pena maistok na chuyim, yamanim maidagwea makpapaitina. Today, we're going to continue inventing new words by combining infixes. Then, we're going to listen to a recording of Dan Williams this time, telling about an important milestone in his life. Please turn to page 49 in your Modern Maidu workbook. I want to talk about combining infixes. As you have already seen, this is very common in Maidu, and you can end up with some really long words. Knowing what the infixes mean will help you be able to figure out what a word means, even if you've never heard it before. But how do we know what order to put the infixes in when there's more than one? William Shipley came up with the idea that infixes had to go in a certain order. First, he put various infixes into classes. Here are some pages from his grammar book where he calls infixes thematic suffixes. He divided the infixes into 6 classes, which he thought should go in that order, 1 through 6. He calls his first class T. The second class he calls us, but it also contains yo, to, and toto. Then his third class he calls MLA for motion location infixes. And this class includes many infixes like koi, doi, pi, kit, dikno, mit, and others like that. His fourth class, which he calls men, only contains the negative. His fifth class, which he calls bos, also contains chi, nu, and doi, when doi means start instead of going upward. Finally, he has a 6th class, which he calls choi, which contains choi and ke. Here's a summary of his classes. He thought the infixes had to come in this order, 1 through 6. But the good news is he was mostly wrong about this class system. You don't have to memorize a bunch of classes of infixes and what order he says they go in. His dictionary and recordings prove him wrong. There are many, many examples in his dictionary and recordings, as well as in the old Tom Young stories, of words that have the infixes in a different order. Here are a few examples. He thought T came first before all the other infixes, but to name just a few, we have tustikno T, let somebody stand up, with class 1 T coming after class 3 dikno. Okitbos T. T, which he said was class 1, comes after kit, which is class 3, and bos, which he put in class 5. Bosap koi us, blow evil off of yourself. Koi is class 3, and us is class 2. So those should go in the opposite order according to his rules. Batapai men chono, not be able to catch up with. Men is class 4, pi and chono are both class 3, so those are out of order. The only order I've been able to pin down is the following. The infixes that are grammatical markers, like the negative men and the future ma and the speculative choi, they do come last after the other infixes. And when you have men in the same word with choi or ma, men comes first before the choi or ma, but they're both toward the end of the word. For example, ka'amen mapun kakan. It's not going to be like that. Notice how men comes before ma. Men and ma are both infixes, and pem is what I call a suffix coming at the end. T, the causative T, comes before men when they're in the same word. Me pinti men maankano. Don't let him hear about it. Me pinti men maankano. Men and ma coming after the other infixes, but before the ending ankano that tells us who's doing the action. So, other than the grammatical infixes which come last before the suffixes, it looks like there's no set order for the infixes. But the order you put them in does affect the meaning of the word. For example, pebosti means make somebody eat it all. Petibos means finish making somebody eat. Itudoi kukus means pretend to start getting sick, but itu kukus doi means start to pretend to be sick. So your English translation of the infixes tends to start with the last one and work its way back towards the word root. Makeka? Let's practice on a couple. What's the difference between tawal heketi and tawalti heket? Tawal heket, stop working. Tawal heketi, cause to stop working. Tawalti is make somebody work. Tawalti heket is stop making somebody work. So, tawal heketi, make somebody stop working, and tawalti heket, stop making somebody work. Ha means use. What's the difference between ha bodukwo and ha wo boduk? Ha boduk, not used very much. Ha boduk wo, tell somebody not to use much. Ha wo is tell somebody to use it. Ha wo boduk, not tell somebody very much to use it. So, ha boduk wo, tell somebody not to use it much, and ha wo boduk, not tell somebody very much to use it. On page 49 I wrote, T and men are always in the order T men, even if the meaning would tempt you to put the T after the men, not let or not make somebody do. It's true that I've not found any examples of men plus T in that order in the recordings and writings that I have. But I just noticed that a couple of paragraphs above this, I'm showing you how to add an infix to a word that already has an infix. And I give the example of amenti. That's exactly the order I never see these two infixes in. So I'm trying to tell you, but then I make the mistake myself. So please correct that to T-men in your book. And now that you're getting more advanced in Maidu yourself, please don't be shy about telling me if you find mistakes in my books. Turn to page 50 and let's practice a few with T plus men. If you want to make up a word that means to clean something, you could make it out of the word oiche, be dirty, bebam weep oiche. How would you make a word cause something to not be dirty? Oiche timan. Causing something to not be dirty is to clean it. How could you take a word we have, like laugh, nuk, and make it into a word for be serious? Cause to not laugh, nukdimen. How would you say, he's so serious? Making serious into an adjective. Tetet nukdimen pem. Kakan tetet nukdimen pem. He is very serious. Mum nukdimen pem Maidum. That serious guy. Let's practice combining other infixes to make up new words, starting on page 50. Practice with some of these. Second one down, if you want to make up a word for save or backup, like your computer files, take a word wono, lose, and then an infix chi, not be able to, and then t, cause. Wono chui ti. Make it so you can't lose. Save it. Bebam weap. Wono chui ti. The seventh one down. If you need a word, convince myself or tell myself. Take a word we already have like tikche, believe. Add ti, tikche ti. Make somebody believe. Tikche ti. Add us, tikche ti us. Make myself believe. Make oneself believe. Tikche ti us. Way away, tikche ti us. Now, second from the bottom. Expire, run out of time. Like a meter is expiring. We take the word will sip, go by, talking about time, add bos, completely, time completely going by. Then add doi, start to completely go by or run out of time. Will sip bos doi. Now on to the next page, page 51. Fifth one down. To create a word make peace, you could take the word hompai total, which is fight, a physical fight. Add heket, stop fighting. Hompai total, heket. Then add ti, cause people to stop fighting. Hompai total hekiti. Let's go to page 52 towards the bottom. Do you see this list of words all starting with who? Let's go over some of them. The first one, huheye, is the same word as hueye. Dixon spelled it huheye with another H, and Shipley spelled it with weye at the end. Now, I don't know if this is just a spelling difference for the same words, or whether Tom Young actually pronounced it different from Mame Gallagher. Hueye, hueye. They sound almost the same. Anyway, it means think. Sometimes I'll spell it one way, and sometimes I'll spell it the other way. Huhehe means give a thought to. Hupai, guess. Hukit, create using thought. Hubokoi, not be thinking straight. Humit, bring to mind. Hukinu, remember. So if you strip off the infixes, you get a word root, who. What would you say who probably means? We don't have this word by itself, just who in the dictionary. But even though we don't have it, we can figure out it's something to do with thinking and the mind. Once you get to the word root, you can make up other new words by adding other infixes. In this picture, we see how Maidu words get put together. There's the root, like the who we just talked about, and that's represented by the dark blue puzzle piece. Then you can have 0 to many infixes added on, like the light blue or turquoise puzzle pieces. Notice that these first and last puzzle pieces are not end pieces. Something can come after all those infixes. What is it? The suffix or the ending. The grammatical endings like kas, kan, dom, wetten, etc. Also, something can be added at the beginning, which we haven't learned about yet, and that is a prefix. We'll learn about that next lesson. Normally, there's one verb root, and then there can be many infixes before you get to those grammatical endings like kas or dom. At the bottom of page 53 and continuing on to page 54, there's some practice you can do, making up new words by stripping off an infix. In the third column, it shows what infix to strip off, and in some cases, another infix to add on to make up new words. For example, we have a word from the old Tom Young stories, not extend all the way, talking about a rope some girls were trying to use to climb down from the land of the stars. The word is piuboduk, but no word has been recorded for just extend. Since the boduk infix means not very much, we could just take that part off and get down to the root, piu, extend. Some of these are asking you to strip off an infix, then add on another infix. For example, the second to the last one is unpack. We have a word, hespopai, pack things up. If we strip off pi, then add sip, we get hesposip, which could be a word for unpack. Makika. So practice doing some of these on your own. This brings us to the end of Lesson 2 in the Modern Maidu workbook. That's a huge lesson, understanding genuine Maidu parts. Now let's listen to a recording of Dan Williams telling about an important event in his life. First, Mame Gallagher is asking him to talk about it.
Heran to the Macadam, Wallachim, Chips Creek at home. Amam Panim Bisim, Yamani at home.
Yeah.
Working with way at the Kyle San Army.
Yeah. Mamun kan Panim Bisim, Yamanim, Pakanim, Mali, Yotunodum, Onan Yodanum, Yokitum, Atan Yodayon. Mam Hoi by Nick Megatum, Uno Sanas. I happened him in Hoyano, I managed when he Mam Mikunim be Yotuno, Ominica Yotuno. Mayat Momim, Mayadam. Mom Poldo Pemnakana Munia, my year to kid Yokit is pretty by Savim, but top Pemadam. Niki in the war Pemnakanum. I would have had him. Yeah, man, by Yodo, must none. Yeah, don't. We Penama, I happen I Adam done this. That kan dik beg kway on ka thima pen ka me o mai dong ka kan min pe wi pena mom na ya dom don nim jet kan mom pakane dim ke siwan hin no pe mat min ki ma di kan ka don ma pa ma om sulu ma do ki mas om sulu don kin mas this will have ya hadam min kan helamo may min maidum akum amnik kanima simakin now
Amam Hayudo in Baming Kima, so I see them in Bacon, Chidom, Niki, Don't Pay.
Yeah. Matadom, Martin, Marmum, Onan, Picodum, by Pesibas, what are Lomnik, Yahan, Helam, Yudi, Minki, Bedoi hit them. Halai, sipom halai di amani kan kano. Kaok kedema pam akum mamnik. Nam yahadong kan min. Yahadong min kan. Omeidam, omeikum min meidam. Nim ulem min pakanem inin noma. Akum mamnik. Mamunin bakane menin nonan min helam putsaka helam omek men neidam yahang kano nik on ko dong kang kano akem mam nik bekiat yos pasmat watade wa ya mamai se be tanim ma kansa
Kanim. Way boskasak.
Now, I'm always asking you if you remember something from another lesson. Instead of asking you in English, I'm going to ask you in Maidu. Do you remember? Hukinu is remember. Hukinuka is asking you, do you remember? When you say hukinu, stretch out that first U sound. Hukinu. Bebamweb. Hukinuka. First sentence.
Amam. Unim. Heran to di makarimum. Wolakim chips creek adon. Amam panim bisim. Yamani adon.
Yeah.
Working with way up here.
Yeah.
Kausan means as usual. Bebamweb. Kausan. New word. Henante. In this area or this side of. Bebamweb. Muyim henante di makare. Is that in the same area? Muyim henante di makare. Is that in the same area what's being called Ship's Creek by whites, that tobacco habitat mountain? Say something or other, talking as usual. Kausan. Next sentence.
Mamun kan panim bisim yamanim pakanim.
Panim bisim, tobacco habitat. That is tobacco habitat mountain lake. Next sentence.
Mali yotuno dom onan yoda dom yokit dom atan yodo yon mam hoy pa ba nik begiatan uno sanas.
What is the root of all these words? Yo chono, yo dao, yo kit, yo doi. Yo, dive. But really, it's move through water. The infixes tell us what kind of moving. Yo chono. The chono infix means go over or around something. I always picture movement in a curved line. If you translate this as dive in, you can picture the way your body curves from a standing position to a bending over position before you go head first into the water. Bebamweb, yo chono. The kit and dao infixes are all about going down. He was diving down. What about yodoi? We don't say dive up in English, but in Maidu you can. Dive up or swim up out of the water. Yodoi. Saying to dive in, saying to dive down from a rock, swim down, then finally come back up. We've learned about direct quotes, which have quotation marks around what was said. But here we have an indirect quote. which does not have any quotation marks. Here's the difference between a direct and indirect quote in English. "Jump off that rock," he said. That's a direct quote. "He told me to jump off that rock." That's an indirect quote. No quotation marks, and it's not exactly what the person said. Instead of jump, we say, "He told me to jump." In Maidu, dom is often used for the indirect quote where we would say to in English. As we can see here, he told me to dive in, then to dive down, and then finally to come back up. That last part of the indirect quote ends in wonum to show it's the last thing to do. My late father, behind me now, was encouraging me. Huno, to encourage or support. Now Shipley thought Dan Williams was saying Huno us usan asi, but I'm hearing Huno usan as, with the as being the emphasizer. Shipley used quotes around Huno usan as if Dan Williams' father was telling him this, and he translated as, "You must always have confidence in yourself." My problem with this is that the usan ending means he used to do it. It's not what you use to tell somebody else what to do. Shipley was also interpreting the us to be the us infix yourself. When I'm hearing this, it's just one us, the usan ending for he used to. So as much as I like Shipley's words, "You must always have confidence in yourself," I'm interpreting this part of the sentence to mean, my late father behind me now was supportive or was encouraging me. Remember that in Maidu we say used to when talking about a person who's passed away, but we can translate it as was. My interpretation is different from Shipley's, and I might not be right, but this is my best guess. Here's what I think the whole sentence means. Saying to dive in, saying to dive down from a rock, to swim down, then finally to come back up, my late father behind me now was encouraging, saying that. Next sentence. Ayapiti, in such a place, in a place like this. Hoiwiha, hukinuka. Lead, min hoiwihanoye ismani. Hesi maikare. When I lead you around. Mi kunim, your turn. Beba moyep, mi kunim. When I lead you around to a place like this, it's your turn now. Dive in. Then I ended up diving in. Amam is referring to a topic here. It doesn't always refer to a person or place. It could be the whole topic that was just discussed. The whole topic of me leading you here. Amam can be translated as that's because, or because of that, or that's why. Next sentence. Notice he says yacht instead of yahat. Very much, a lot. Then the water was doing like that a lot. Shipley notes that here Dan Williams was using hand gestures to show what the water was doing. Mompoldoipem, which was bubbling up, water bubbling up. Mompoldoipem. The root yak means like, as in similar to. Yaktenumani, when it was doing like that. Now I can't catch the last couple of words after yaktenumani. Then the water doing like that a lot, like something bubbling up. Next sentence.
Sawim batop pemayadam. Nikihin di wopem yakkenum awat hadadi mai.
Yo kit ismani. Hesi maikade. Yo hukinuka. Dive. Yo kit, dive down. Hesara makare unim is mum estodi. I said, why is there this is in the middle of the word? That means I. Yo kid ismani, when I dove down. Ye ontokit. We don't have the word ye ontokit in the dictionary. Shipley thought he was saying ye oswalkit, but I'm not hearing it that way. We do have a word in ontokit, which means down in between. If I'm hearing ye ontokit, it could mean down deep. And that would make sense with yo kit ismani, when I dove down deep. Sawi, vegetation, green plants. Sawim motopem, vegetation, bunched together. Nikihindi wopem, hesi maikade. Wo hukinuka, hit, which hit my eyes. Notice he says Hindi in the eyes. Nikihindi wopem, which hit in my eyes. That's how you say, which hit me in the eyes. Then he adds yakadom, seeming like. So it just seemed like it was hitting him in the eyes, but it didn't really. Awet hadadi mi. Awet hukinuka. Although. Hada means far. Hadadi, in the distance, far away. Bebamwea hadadi. Then, when I dove down now, vegetation which was bunched together, being like this, which hit me in the eyes, or seemed to, although it was off in the distance. Next sentence. Yodoi kumas. I dove up out of there. Next sentence.
Dom. We penama daya pena ayadam dom nis. That nganik begi kwe. Katima penkame omei dong kekan min.
I'm not hearing the first part of the sentence. Then I hear, while reaching towards nothing maybe, doing like this, grab onto something like that. Who is saying it? Dan Williams' father, after Dan Williams came up out of the water without finding anything. Don bis, hang on. Bebamwea, don bis. Munkakanik bekak weawonum. That's what my father ended up saying. Bebamwea, munkakanik bekak weawonum. How would you say, that's what my mother ended up saying? Munka kan nik nek weawonum. Kaati mapen kan. O medam ka kan mim. Kaati mapen kan. Hukinu kabum verb partnership kan plus mapem. Hesi maikade kaati mapen kan. It can do that, or it can do like that. O meron kakan min. Hesi maikade. It is giving kakan meron. What is it giving? O, a stone. O meron kakan min. It is giving you a stone. That's what my father ended up saying. It can do like that. It is giving you a stone. Next sentence.
We pena mom na ya dom don nimjet ken. Mom pakane nim. Kesiwan hinno epemat. min kimadi kang don mapa.
While you catch, don nim chat. Mum pakanim, pakani dim, the lake, the interior of the lake. And this is the subject. You can say pakanidi, in the lake, then make it into a noun subject by adding im, pakanidim, the inside or interior of the lake. Wipe, where there is nothing. Wipena, towards where there is nothing, to where nothing is. Momna eyarom, towards water while doing that. Hinoye, float along towards. Hesiwet hinoyepem maat minki madi kan. Hesi maikade. It's even floating something into your hand. The last word sounds like hadon mapa. We don't have a word hadon in the dictionary, but ha means carry and don means catch. And we do have a word hadonu, meaning have something on you. So we might guess that hadon would mean carry while holding. It looks like a command. Dan Williams' father is telling him what might happen if he gets back in the water. Then he says, hadon mapa. In the old Tom Young stories, he uses the expression mapi, do it, and especially with the negative ben. Ben mapi means don't do it. Only one time do we find ben mapa in the stories, and this seems to mean don't let someone else do it. Makite anoy ben mapa. This means don't let his son wander around. The ben infix is negative, like men. If we interpret hadon mapa to be the non-negative command, but otherwise like anoy ben mapa, it could mean let it come into your possession. While doing like that, towards where nothing is, towards water, the lake, the interior of the lake, can float something right into your hand. Let it come into your possession. Now, just to show you how people can hear something different, I'm going to play the recording again and display how Shipley wrote it. I've converted his writing into fishhead.
Pawipena mom na ya dom don nim jet ken. Mum pakani dim. Siwan hinno epemat min kimadi kang don mapa.
Next sentence.
Mama om suluan mahado kimas. Om sulu don kimas.
We know that ha means carry. Hesi maikade maha. Carry with your hand. Hesi maikade maha doi kumas. I carried up, or I brought up in my hand. Om Sulu, lucky rock. Shipley called it a fetish or charm stone. Because of that, I guess, I brought up a lucky stone. I caught a lucky stone. Next sentence.
This will have. Ya hadom min ken. Helamo may Helamo may kimin maidom. Akum amnik.
Chehe kit isbani. Hesi maikare. When I looked down. Now we have a direct quote. Who is speaking? His father. How do we know, since he doesn't actually say, my father? We know that the main sentence is going to be a different person because of the mani. Chehe kit isbani. When I look down. Now comes the main sentence, which is somebody, not I, saying a direct quote. The second clue is that after the quote, he says, Akum Mom Nick. He said to me. So his father is talking. And what does he say? Hel Yahadom, Min Kakan Helam Omeya, Helam Omeka Min Medom. Okay, doing good. A gambling stone gift. A gambling stone giver. It is giving to you. It being the interior of the lake. Next sentence.
Now.
That's all, I guess. Must be. Mayakan. Must be. Next sentence.
Amam Maidu itin Bemin Kima Iskadom Swatch Minki Bacon Chedom Minki Donpe.
Yeah.
Shipley wrote, Hey you doiwetin, coming up like out of the water. But I'm hearing, Ha you doiwetin, a word we don't have in the dictionary, but could be based on ha, carry. So, Waitidom, what do you think the root so means based on words that have this root? Soyo, fetch, like fetch firewood. So kit, set something down. Soya, pass, like pass the salt. And sowono, let something go, release it. It seems like the root so means getting or releasing something with the hands. The Y infix means spread apart. Hesi maikade, minki ma so waitidom. Making your hands spread apart or open up. Notice that T in there, so waitidom. He's causing his hand to spread open. He's opening up his hand. Amuni, now the subject is going to change. Minki mabekam chedom. Minki donpe, what you caught. Now in the last lesson we learned that words ending in pe can be active or passive. And when they're passive, that's when the action's done to them. And we know that when there's a word ending in ki, like minky here, you can translate them as passive. So another way to translate this sentence would be, what was caught by you? Minky don't pay. Do you see how those two translations really mean the same thing? What was caught by you and what you caught? Next sentence.
Matadom Atan Marmum Onan Picodum be Pesibas. What?
Can you tell who is doing the action in this sentence? What's the main verb? The main verb is pisipas. I was swimming out. The subject is I, Dan Williams. Pi is to swim. Pisip, swim down and out. Hesi maikade ama chadom. Seeing that. Now, who is he talking about? Who is seeing it? Well, it has to be he himself, Dan Williams, because chadom ends in dom. Has to be the same subject as the main verb, pisipas. I swam out. I was swimming out. Ama chadom. When I saw it, awetin amanan onan pikoidom. Hesi maikade. Then from that place, swimming out from the rock, onan, from the rock. Wata means shore. It could also mean the edge of something, like the edge of a forest. And funny enough, it can also mean plate, like a plate you eat from. Bebamweb, wata. Hesi maikade, watano. Along the shore. Hukinuka unum no It's like di or na, a postposition. Watano, the no means along. Watano, along the shore, is where he found his gambling stone. So the whole sentence, seeing that after swimming out from that place, from the rock, I was swimming along the shoreline. Next sentence.
Lamnik, Yahan Kano, Helam Yudi, Minki, Budoy Hitdom, Helai, Sipom Helai, the Amanikan Kano, Kaok Kedema from Akumamnik.
Helai is gambling. Helam is the adjective describing you. As far as I can tell, you must mean good luck. Helam yudi, in gambling, good luck. Minky, for you. In gambling, good luck for you. Sopom helaidi, in grass game gambling. Beba moyep, sopom helaidi. Sopom means grass. Bedoy kitdom, when you're sitting down. Helam yudi minki bedoy kitdom, sopom helaidi. In gambling, good luck for you when you're sitting down to do grass game gambling. Amani, with that just mentioned thing, with that good luck stone. Kaankano kawoka de mapem. You can win at grass game gambling. Now, the word kawokede only occurs this one time in all the texts and recordings I have. We know that Mame Gallagher was guiding Shipley by translating, and Shipley wrote it as hiding the bones for your benefit. The word kere means graze like animals do, eating directly off the ground. The word kere is also used in the old stories about the men who would go deer hunting and wear deer heads, pretending to graze in the grass to attract real deer. The ka prefix shows it's about doing something secretive, as you might be doing when you're gambling. We know that wo can have a lot of meanings, hit or strike. This word seems like a Maidu idiom that may not make sense when you try to analyze it. But the whole word means something like do well in the grass games. Bebamweye, kawokede. Kaankano kawokede mapem. Hukinuka, the verb partnership, kan plus mapem. It translates as can. You can do well in the grass games. Bebamweye, kaankano kawokede mapem. Again in English, saying to me, you are doing good in gambling, good luck for you when you're sitting down to grass game gambling. With that, you can hide the bones well in grass games, he said to me. Next sentence.
Omeidam, omeikum maidam, nimulem min pakanum in noma. Akuma.
Wale, we know this word as run, but it can also mean test, like a test you have to pass. Make, gift, or something that always gives. Inno, inside of, within. Bebam wea, inno. Unim pakanim in inno, within this lake. Weyawe, unim pakanim in inoma. Now notice that Dan Williams puts ma at the end, making it into a noun. What is inside this lake? The gifted stone which was inside the lake, being given by this test. It is being good to you. It's being good to you, giving you a stone as a gift, this test, which was inside this lake, he said. Next sentence.
Mamunim pakanim in nonan min helam putsaka Halang make man naidam yahang kano.
Helam Puksaka, a gambling birth giver or creator. Ya Dukdukis Mam Pukmankano. You, who I have perfected, will produce offspring. That's from the creation story. Pukmaankano, you will reproduce, have offspring. Puksaka, one who keeps on reproducing. From the interior of this lake, giving to you a gambling birth giver, a gambling stone as a gift, you are doing well. Next sentence.
Nik on go dong kang kano. Akum mam nik back yet. Yours pasmat. What are they way yet?
You are surpassing me. Nik onkoidon kaankano. He said, my late father, Nik Bekiatam, speaking at the shore, Watadi Wayadom, when I came up out of the water. Yosip Ismani. Next sentence.
Mamay say bay kanimma kansa. Yeah,
Kanim.
way was them.
Wayeboskasa.
Kanim or Kaninkakan, typical way to end your story, meaning that's all or the end. Here, Dan Williams adds kansa, which is unusual. The word sa does come up occasionally in the old Tom Young stories, meaning something like really. Here are 3 examples from the old stories. Wayapsa, go ahead and say it, really say it. Hell, unobene sa, okay, I guess you better go, really. Anosa, go ahead then, really go. So when Dan Williams says kansa kanim weabostom, I interpret this as being done talking, really, that's all. Then Mame Gallagher says weaboskasa, which seems to mean she's asking him, are you really all done talking? Now, Shipley did not write these down. Here's what he wrote.
Mamay say bay kanimma kansa. Yeah,
Kanim.
way was them.
Wayeboskasa.
I would say, don't rely on what Shipley or I write down, but listen to the recordings with your own ears. Now, being able to understand Maidu is one thing, but being able to speak it is, of course, much harder. Last time I asked you to start thinking of writing a short story about something that happened to you. Try your best to use correct grammar, putting an M on the end of noun subjects, using the correct verb endings, and maybe try to use a direct quote if you can. And try to use a complex sentence. Maybe make up a couple of new words. You may not remember what video lesson we learned something in, but it's all in the grammar book. So if you forgot exactly how to do something, look in the grammar book. We'll talk more about your stories next time. Yahat Bispara.